The first question is asking yourself, who or what am I in service to? What am I in service to? What am I really serving right now? And if it's in service to your parents' expectations or society's expectations or your partner's expectations, just know that that's not quite it. I love you. You're doing a great job. Keep going. But that's not quite self-love. That's not quite the texture that we're looking at when we examine self-love. So good to be with you guys. It has been a little while since I've touched base with something like an Instagram Live or even with the podcast. And the main reason for that is because I'm a father now. And today actually marks month number 3 of becoming a father. So my son, Leonidas Tillam Mack, was born 3 months ago today on the night of the new moon. And the new moon in Bahasa, in Balinese language, is actually Tillam, and that's why his middle name is Tillam. So I'm going to be kind of looking up here, but also kind of looking here. We've got a couple different cameras, 3 different cameras right now. So I'm going to be paying attention to all of you at different points. And today is an opportunity to come back into sharing more publicly and touching base with what's alive for me right now. And that is, I had a bunch of podcast topics because, I've had so much time to think about wanting to share with you all, but I just haven't had time to actually jump in the studio and record it. So I had a list of things to choose from, and I decided that today, what is most important for me, and hopefully is important for you today and always, is the topic of self-love. Self-love. Now, as you all know, I'm a relationship coach. I often work with families or people that want to create a family and help them create a culture that really works for them. And you could say that a large part of that is creating a culture that honors and values love. And sometimes I think we get love itself, not even self-love, just love itself, confused. I actually help a lot of clients with that specific thing, is when they are self-sacrificing and giving so much of themselves away, dropping their standards or self-abandoning in some way, or not having their desires, not letting their boundaries be met. And they kind of give some of that power away to another person, and then end up with a bunch of resentment and regret and contempt, and it doesn't make for a very loving or enjoyable family culture, especially over a longer period of time. And that's what I focus on, is long-term relationship building. So love itself is an interesting one. It's what does it really mean to love? And part of that is to, honor yourself, honor your needs, boundaries, and desires. Even when, and especially when, you're in relationship to another. So that's kind of my definition of love. And self-love, this is like a word that gets misconstrued and and confused often, because self-love has kind of become a marketing tool, right? Self-love is take yourself on a trip, or self-love is buy this new bath bomb, or self-love is a new facial routine, or self-love is overindulging in massages. And Could be, all of those things could be an act of self-love. But my experience is that self-love is less outward, right? It's less of an outward experience and more internal. And, just to be clear, I don't think self-love is that thing where we are so self-centered that we neglect others. That's also not self-love. I think there's overindulgence and some selfishness in that as well. But self-love is, for me, the point in which we connect to our truer self, true version of ourself. So if you're listening to this, I want you to consider, what are you? Okay, I'm going to lay this out because there's a couple really important, super important questions for you. And the first one is, what are you in service to? What are you in service to? And that's an important question to ask for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons that it's important to ask is because so often we end up being in service to something that isn't really true to us. Okay, so what else would you be in service to? Well, you'd be in service likely to societal beliefs or family beliefs or expectations of others. Jung had a quote, and he said that we all live two lives. First life is when we go around pleasing and fulfilling the wants of other people. And our second life begins when we start to reclaim our life, right? When we start to do life on our own terms. And a lot of people get to that second life when they've kind of had a midlife crisis. Some people happens in their 30s, some people 40s, 50s, 60s, some people on their deathbed, some people never happens to. But it's that point in which it often happens when you have reached all of the goals that you thought were important for you. Your financial goals, your career goals, your relationship goals. You're like, I've made it, and you've spent so much of your life fulfilling the wants of other people. Right? You have spent so much of your life fulfilling the wants of other people that you probably care and love deeply. Maybe it's your parents, or your aunt and uncle, or your brothers and sisters, or your partner. And you've spent so much of your energy giving to that, and you've really thought, this will make me happy if I make those other people happy. And the truth is, if we live our lives trying to make other people happy, we will live in shoes that are too small for us. We don't live up to our full potential. We won't ever make ourselves happy, right? So we miss the connection piece to our self, like self with a capital S, the true self. And maybe you can feel that for yourself. Like maybe you, okay, if you step out of your day-to-day life, if you step out of the repetitive actions, the to-do list, the endless cycles of your tasks that you think you need to do, right? If you step out of that for a moment and you feel into this essence of who you are, this essence of like why you are here, not just like here where you are now, but like if you step into the essence of who you are as a soul, as a true self, if you feel into that for a moment, you might notice that there's an undercurrent of something different than all of the to-dos that you have on your list, right? And we can do all those things. We can even fall in love with doing those things. We can fall in love with people pleasing. Like, really, we can. But that's not self-love. Right? Self-love is something different. It has a different frequency. And it's that moment where we can connect to that undertide, that under movement of that current of who we really are, And we all have this. So the first question is asking yourself, who or what am I in service to? What am I in service to? What am I really serving right now? And if it's in service to your parents' expectations or society's expectations or your partner's expectations, just know that that's not quite it. I love you. You're doing a great job. Keep going. But that's not quite self-love. That's not quite the texture that we're looking at when we examine self-love. So we have to ask ourselves, who or what am I in service to? And can you right now feel into what would it be like to be in service to my truer self? And I ask this in such a way that I don't want or expect you to come up with an answer right now, because that's in service to me, right? Like, that's also not self-love. That's like, oh, Brady's doing this podcast and it sounds interesting and I want to practice self-love. Let me go do that thing. I don't want to be that guy that's like telling you to do this. I want you to find this for yourself. So don't even worry about answering that question. I'm gonna get this way off, but there's this amazing poem. I want to say it's by I don't know who it's by, but the essence of the poem goes something like this. All throughout life, we are asking questions and looking for the answer. Asking questions, looking for the answer. But we never actually get to the arrival point, right? So instead of asking the question and looking for the answer, see what it's like to just live the question. See what it's like to just live that question. What or who are you in service to? What or who are you in service to? Don't worry about the answer, because you won't have it today, and it'll change tomorrow. Don't worry about the answer so much. Just see what it's like to live that question of what or who am I in service to? And by simply living that, you will become the answer. You will become the answer. So that's the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is who or what am I actually in service to? Be that question for yourself. And feel into it, because it's going to show up for you in all kinds of different ways. For me, one of the ways that shows up is I've noticed that as I've become a father, there's been certain patterns that I've had to look at. And one of those patterns is the feeling of guilt when I'm doing things in service to myself, right? Like, one example is surfing or playing paddle, which is kind of like a combination of like pickleball and tennis. And I love playing that. Or going to the spa, right? Going to, like, we've got a sauna and ice plunge place. We're super fortunate here. And it's just down the street from us, and I go most days. And very early in the stages of parenthood, I was feeling a lot of guilt around going and taking time for myself. And what I realized was that this is actually a common experience for a lot of people, but also for a lot of dads and new dads. Certainly was for my father. But he did something different than what I'm doing, right? A lot of people, and especially a lot of men, have a tendency to self-sacrifice and kind of warrior up and put up with things that aren't really okay with them or aren't serving to them. And what the result of that is, and what certainly was the result for me in my life growing up with my own dad, was that my dad, he would show up for the family and like kind of slug through it and sacrifice. But the way he showed up was kind of full of like resentment and extreme tiredness and exhaustion and all of these pieces that were not self-love, right? We have the idea, again, that love is like giving away ourselves and sacrificing and punishing ourselves even at times for other people. But that's not the case, right? Love is an internal experience, and it starts with that question, what am I in service to, right? So what I've noticed as I've ventured into fatherhood is that when I go to the spa, when I take care of myself, when I take care of my needs, I come home full of so much more love and just regulation. Like, my nervous system is regulated. I'm fed. I'm filled up. I'm getting what I need. And then I can share that with my family. But if I wasn't getting those things, if I was underslept, underregulated, felt resentful, I would be in service to them, like my family, but I wouldn't be in a state of love. And I work through this with my clients all the time. I was working with someone yesterday, and she's a mother of 3 children, and she just gives and gives and gives and gives. And we took her to this place of building out space for herself. And what we found in that is that when she takes time in this space, in this container for herself, she comes back to love her family more deeply. She comes back to be able to give so much more. Right? But so many of us are trying to give, or on the airplanes, I love that saying. It's like, put on your own oxygen mask first before you're helping your kids and others. Because we can't, right? If we're suffocating, we cannot save someone else. In fact, we can never save someone else. That's not, in this world, emotionally, we're not here to save people. We're here to be compassionate with people. But that starts with being compassionate with ourselves, right? So how can you be more compassionate with yourself? And I love the word compassion, which actually means to be with passion. Passion means suffering. So compassion is to be with the suffering, right? As an act of love. And so part of, when I was working with my client yesterday, and she was talking about creating these containers and this space for herself. That's so much of what my offering actually is people having time and space with themselves. Not even always to just go into ecstatic bliss and love, but also to sit with the depth of the sadness. And actually what came up for her yesterday was sadness. But while sitting with that, while being compassionate, being with that pain, it brought her to tears of joy. Because she was making connection with her true self. And this is available to us. Now, we get caught up again, right? I'm repeating myself here, and I know there's some new people joining as well, but we get caught up in the to-do lists of life, right? And being the answer to the question, how does your mind work? It's a question and it's an answer. It's a question and it's an answer, right? All day long. And we're so in the doing that we forget the being of love. The being of love. Again, love is not an external experience. It's not a bubble bath or a trip to the Bahamas, right? Love is an internal experience, and it happens through making contact with yourself. So I want to ask you, just to summarize, I want you to ask yourself the question, who or what am I in service to? Right? Find out who and what you're in service to. If it's other people's expectations, take some time, build a space, create a container, find a coach, find a way to create a space for yourself to, number 2, make contact. Like make contact with self, right? With really touching into the true self, not the expectations of others' self, the real self, right? And continue to do that. I had a breathwork session yesterday, and it brought up so much of what it really means to connect with self. And in my journey, I had a flashback to times that I was using. I had alcohol. I'm a recovering addict, and I've been sober for quite a while now. And I realized that in those times of being addicted, the thing that was missing was connection to self and self-love. And everyone who has addictive tendencies, whether it's to alcohol or substance or sex or work or whatever, we've all got something. Just notice that those to-do lists, right, those addictive, obsessive tendencies often have a lack of connection or touch points to self. So ask yourself the questions. Who or what am I in service to? How can I make more contact with self? I love you. I want this for you. Don't do this for me, please. Don't do it because I'm asking you to. Do this as an opportunity to connect to yourself. I care about you. I've seen this so many times with my clients. I see it every day. And with one of the clients I had this morning, he was like, man, we're just wrapping up our 8 sessions together, and he was like, man, like, I'm so grateful for your work. Like, I want to continue on. Like, how can we keep going? And like, just thank you. And he was so grateful. And he was someone who stepped in and really did the work. And I said, thank you. Like, thank you for allowing me to be able to do. I love this work because I get to see people step in and really connect to to this, right? To their true self. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you have likely grown up in a world where you've been so obsessed with pleasing other people's expectations. And it's not a life sentence, right? Your second life can start right now by choosing to connect to that. So I'm going to leave it there. This has been fun. Thanks for everyone who's been joining here on Instagram too, and on Facebook. We're live everywhere. I've never done this before, but I'll do more of these and touch base with you guys much more. I'm a new dad, so first and foremost, as I spoke about today, is connection to myself, and feeling like I'm in a really great place to be able to now expand out to you guys. If you are like, this is touching something in you, this is connecting you to a part of yourself that you want to explore, reach out to me. I offer 8-week programs for humans, for couples, but also I work with a lot of individuals that are not in relationship but want to be in relationship to themselves in a way where they love and trust themselves enough to be in relationship with others. So just reach out. I love to have consultations. We can set up a call to chat a little bit more about what it would be like to venture on this journey. I love you. Thank you for being here, and have an amazing rest of your evening. I'm going to go spend some time with the family.